Parashat Balaq. Throughout this week's parasha, we have a somewhat funny episode of Bilam, one of the greatest prophets. I don't mean he was great as in that he was good, but he was great in prophecy. One of the greatest prophets is attempting to curse the Jewish people. He's attempting to gain kavod, honor in the eyes of Balaq, the great king of the time, by cursing the Jewish people. And on multiple occasions he attempts to curse them. He, however, ends up blessing them. After which, he's of course scolded by Balaq. Balaq says to him, I tried to honor you, but your God has withheld honor from you. And he goes off on his way. Bilam leaves Balaq empty-handed with no gifts, no reward and no honor. Immediately after that, the Torah relates that the Jewish people were camped at Shittim. And in Shittim, Vayachel ha'am liznot el benot Moav. The Jewish people began having marital relations with the daughters of Moab, with the Moabite women, which later results in a Magifa, a plague, and 24,000 die. And one of the Nisi'im of the Jewish people, one of the greatest men, the leader of a tribe, the tribe of Shimon, is actually publicly, it's known to everyone, is having marital relations with one of the Moabite women, which is a terrible Hilul Hashem, and leads us to the next parasha, Parashat Pinchas. Rashi points out, why is this immediately after Bilam's departure from Balaq? Just after Bilam leaves Balaq, immediately after he leaves to go on his way, the Torah relates the story, and the Jewish people began to have relations with the daughters of Moab. Says Rashi, Al yedei atzat Bil'am kideita behelek. Rashi quotes a Gemara. The Gemara says, this came about, this terrible episode that led to the death of so many of the Jewish people. This came about through the Etzah of Bilam. It was immediately after Bilam left, because Bilam left Balaq with a grand piece of advice. He said, let me advise you. I wasn't able to curse them for you, but let me advise you. Send out your daughters to influence them, to seduce them, to bring them to sin. It took a Bilam, again, somebody proficient, somebody amazing in prophecy. It took a Bilam to realize something very profound. It worked terribly against us, but we can use it for us. Bilam realized that the power of the Jewish people, the only way to strike the Jewish people, to pull them down, is by using spiritual techniques. We're not going to beat them physically. That's not where they're going to lose. That's not where the battlefield is. The battle with these people isn't even going to be a direct curse. God's not going to let that happen. Bilam was an expert at cursing. God's not going to let that happen. The wrong words will come out of my mouth. I'll end up blessing them. But you know what? If you can get these guys to sin, that's where they're going to fall. You can't beat them at war. You can't beat them straightforward. How do I get them? By getting them to sin. Because the secret of the Jewish people is something that Bilam realized. The secret of the Jewish people is that our success, our true success, begins on the level of the spiritual, on how we keep the Torah and how we stay loyal to our faith and to the fundamental principles of our nation. And those principles are articulated in the Torah. They're unchangeable. Principles that won't change with time, with fashion. Every century we have new ideas coming up. Every decade, every year, we have new philosophies that people so much attach themselves to. But the Torah does not change, and the principles of our faith do not change. And Bilam said, if you can get them away from their godliness, if you can get them away from their Torah, if you can make them mix with the nations, then you've got them. That's how they'll fall. And indeed, we fell. Thankfully, not all the way, but we fell. We took a terrible hit. And as odd as it sounds, we need to learn a lesson from Bilam, or from what Bilam realized about us. Our strength is in our faith in God. Our strength is in keeping our Torah, our eternal Torah, that has and will never be changed. Shabbat Shalom.